Hey everybody, welcome to the Blendr Report, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Jonathan Harvey. This is your co-host, Liam DeBoer. Liam, what are we talking about today?
We're going to be chatting about whether the Conservatives can save Canada, Ottawa proposing a $105 million tent city for homeless migrants, Canadians spending more on taxes than food, shelter, and clothing combined, violent crime increasing by 50% since Trudeau took office, the UK Prime Minister calling for AI surveillance to be used against anti-immigration protesters, and mass civil unrest in Venezuela after what appears to be a stolen election. However, if before we get into things, you wouldn't mind subscribing to our channel and tossing a thumbs up on this video, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's get started. So first off, we've got, can the Conservatives save Canada? It's never been more clear that Canada is over Justin Trudeau, with a Conservative victory looking likely in 2025. If Pierre Poilievre becomes Canada's next Prime Minister, he will face challenges such as an economic recovery, immigration reform, and addressing social and political divisions exacerbated by identity politics and foreign interference. Poilievre would need to manage the deficit without raising taxes, revert immigration to a need-based system, and restore Canadian values while navigating complex geopolitical dynamics and domestic ethnic tensions. Solving these problems will be crucial if the Conservatives wish to secure and maintain power. So is Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative Party up to the task?
Well, let's be honest, he's probably the last hope this country has. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but I mean for this chapter, you and I don't really like to believe in one political party. We don't believe it's Conservatives or Liberals that are really going to fix the world. But at this particular moment in time, the Liberals have eviscerated this country. In fact, the Liberals and sort of liberal ideology has very much eviscerated the West, which I know you and I are going to talk about a little later. So it's not really about Conservatives, it's about the time. It's about exactly what's happening in Canada right now. And it's completely on fire. And I actually believe that this is probably the only guy in a position, because obviously there's a lot of people that can do a lot of great things for Canada, but I mean in this position, that's in that arena, in the political arena, that can make a difference. He's that guy. Now, he's going to be up against a lot. Now, obviously, you listed off some policy issues and some pickles that the Liberals have put us in, but I actually think a Liberal Senate is going to be a big problem for him. I also think that if Kamala Harris somehow wins the US election, I think it's going to be more challenging for him. I really do. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, Canada's going to burn if Trump wins. I think the West is in a lot more trouble if Harris wins. And I think that will slow him down.
She actually just said today, there was a clip that started going viral about it, how everybody needs to be woke and how people can rightfully argue about who is woker or who is the wokest. But as long as everybody is woke, that's a good thing.
And it's this kind of crap that I think is going to make his life a lot harder. It's basically like a Liberal Senate, but in the South, right? Because they have a lot of influence over us. We depend on them in a lot of ways. And I think that could make it a little harder for him. The other thing that can honestly happen, and I know this sounds crazy, is, you say this all the time, that you only need a few people to make a big difference, to make a big change, right? And if there's enough disillusioned extremist liberals out there, they could make this harder for him than it needs to be. But again, like, I think he's our best chance. And here's kind of my thought. If he can't do it, I don't think Canada's in good shape for another 20 or 30 years, because I think we're getting to this tipping point that is primarily driven by immigration and government spending. And if we don't watch these two levers over the next 2 to 3 years, I think we went off the deep end, and I think we're going to go through a cycle that we can't get out of. And I think it's going to take 20 to 30 years before this country's worth living in.
The problem that I see with all of this is that I think I've used the analogy on this podcast before about if you look at society like a car, the Conservatives are the brakes and the Liberals are the gas, right? The issue that we're facing in the Western world right now, and this does come about once every, say, 100 years or so, where society comes to a crossroads, and it's not now just about how fast or what, where we should slow down on when the bends are coming and everything. The issue that we're facing is that the people in the car don't want to go to the same place. And so it's like, how do you properly accelerate or brake if your difference is actually in the direction that you want to go? It doesn't make a difference at that point.
That's a good point.
You've got, and this is the fundamental issue I see facing Canadians right now, and the West largely, is, do we want our society to head towards collectivism and socialism, which is what people like Justin Trudeau and Kamala Harris and such are pushing for? 100% they are. I mean, even Kamala Harris calls openly for equity, right? Which is the equal outcomes. Again,
her dad was also a well-known Marxist.
And
so if she gets in, there's literally a Marxist in the White House.
Yes. And then you've got Trudeau, who pushes for all the exact same policies, but he's just not as he's not as big of a mouthpiece for Marxism as she is, but the policies are the same.
Well, I think his position is that he's a Nancy white boy.
Yeah.
Right. So he can't go too far and say too much. Like, she's got a larger megaphone because she's BIPOC. She all the DEI boxes she gets to check. So
that's the problem that I see Canada's facing, right? Where if you want to, I just did a whole article on this, and I'm going to do a full video on it as well, but about the problems of mass migration and how the state is using mass migration in order to fund its social programs. And so there is this crossroads that we're at where we have to ask ourselves, do we want to let go of the social programs of the state, essentially? And this is something that Canada has prided itself on for a very long time, right? Our social security nets, our universal health care, all of this kind of stuff. Or do we want mass migration and to essentially replace what we know as Canada? Those are the options that are ahead of us right now, because you can't do both. Because on the one hand, if you want to keep the social programs, then you need to artificially boost our population because we do not have the tax base to keep them afloat.
Right.
Or you curb mass migration, you keep Canada, and you let go of these social programs. To me, it's one or the other.
No, I think that's an important designation, because a lot of times when people look at politics, we often go, well, the Liberals and the Conservatives want the same thing. They just see different solutions. We all want to keep the kids safe. We just have different solutions as to how to keep them safe. And I think there's still a reasonable amount of crossover in public policy. But that's a good point, is like, from a macro perspective, the direction of the nation, they're driving in opposite directions. And, if history tells us anything, and honestly, if the actions of Canadians tells us anything, it's people don't want, at scale, people do not want communism. They don't want socialism. They don't want to go down that road. And I think that now's the time, or now's our opportunity to, like I said, sort of put the brakes on and go the other way. And I think if we don't, I think we're too far down that path. I think if we don't do it in the next couple of years, we're in deep trouble. And honestly, if somehow we have a liberal government, because there's always a couple levers they can pull. One being universal basic income, which is like the most social program that would bury this country. But it would be a big swing for voters in the Liberals, right? Anybody on the fence, anybody thinking, anybody under 40 would have to think about it. If somehow they win, this country burns to the ground. Gone.
Yeah, it would be all of those programs that they're pushing for, like UBI, would be like tying a brick to the gas pedal while we're headed straight at a socialist cliff. And it's just full steam ahead towards that. So
yeah,
there needs to be a kind of grassroots change of attitude towards our current values system within Canada. And
I agree. And I think they're different things, though, because I think we both agree that we don't think that the political system or our government can fix the state. We agree, or it can fix our country. We agree. However, the government currently has the power to create the mess that we're currently in. So you need someone in government that at the very least can back off.
Yes.
You need someone to just say, okay, you guys can figure this out. I'll let you do your thing. We're going to focus on these 3 things we should be doing, not the other 500 we're fucking up.
Yeah. And actually that is the silver lining of a guy like Pierre Poilievre, right? Something that he even says often is that I want a government that does a few things well rather than a lot of things poorly. The people on the left will claim that, well, that's just going to allow capitalism to run amok and corporations will get too powerful and such, right? And wealth inequality will skyrocket. First of all, it's skyrocketing despite the fact that our government spending is going like crazy.
Exactly.
But then also, even on this fact, here's a really interesting thought concept when it comes to this. I don't think anybody, if they actually sat down and thought about it, would be willing to argue that even the most powerful corporation in the world, let's say an Amazon of sorts, has as much control over your life as even a small state does.
No, because
Amazon can't put you in jail. Amazon can't tax you. Amazon can't tell you that you can't have a business. Yes, they can monopolize certain services, and they actually do through their fulfillment programs. And yes, you can make definitely critiques about things that corporations do, but a single corporation will never have, like a boardroom, a director's room will never have as much control over your life as the state will.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. We're on the same page. It's like, you know, you kind of look at the leaders, the political leaders in Canada, and you look who's just in that pool. And if you want to have any hope, he's pretty much the only guy.
All right, next story for the day. We've got Ottawa to build a tent-like city to house homeless migrants. The city of Ottawa is considering the installation of tent-like sprung structures to address the unprecedented levels of irregular migration, as outlined in a recent memo to the mayor and city councillors. These structures, each capable of housing 150 beds, offer customizable interiors with washrooms, offices, kitchens, and sleeping spaces, all compliant with local building and fire codes. The city is seeking approximately $105 million in federal funding for the project. However, some councillors have expressed concerns. Councillor Wilson Lowe proposed a motion to halt the plan, citing the high cost, lack of council oversight, and insufficient public consultation. He argued that these structures do not provide a long-term solution, advocating for permanent housing solutions instead. Despite these concerns, the council voted against Lowe's motion, emphasizing the urgent need for immediate solutions. So, what are those solutions to Canada's migrant crisis?
Well, first of all, we have to stop letting people in the country.
Yeah.
There's a good start. We need to deport as many temporary workers and non-permanent residents as possible. And we need to limit the foreign visas for students. 100%. We got to curb that right away. Slow immigration. You know, we I've talked about this. For the next 3 to 5 years, curb immigration to the level that our infrastructure can manage. I don't really think we have any other choice. Incentivize small business to scale employment opportunities. At one point in the not too recent past, 85% of people working in this country are working for small businesses. They've been decimated under Trudeau and through the pandemic. You need to incentivize small business growth because, like you said, we have a more social society. We don't have these larger corporations. We have them, but they're not at the same scale. So you need small business to create employment opportunities. And I think they need incentive because this country does not look good to be a part of right now. Next, I would say all levels of government need to actually work together to build more homes and do it faster. There's no way we should have built more homes in the 70s than we did last year. That does not make any sense. 50 years ago, we built more homes than we did in 2023. That is mental. The population's twice as high. It makes no sense that we don't have the infrastructure to scale properly. And I'm of the mind that it's primarily because of bureaucratic nonsense because all 3 levels of government are involved in housing. And they're just not working together to get this done. And then dark horse, have more kids. Canadians, have more kids. We can curb immigration if we have more children. There's no solution.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing that I thought was telling was how they said unprecedented levels of irregular migration. It's this political language that is designed to just bore anybody that listens to it and then also obfuscate what is actually happening.
Any responsibility.
Well,
gone.
Think about the terms, right? Like it went from back in, say, the 1950s, 60s, the term was illegal aliens, and then it was illegal immigrants, and then it was migrants, or it was...
we like to use refugee a lot.
Yeah.
That's a nice, because then you feel bad for them. So
Right.
now they're not even a problem. You owe them your space.
Yeah, and so it's
Asylum seeker, same space. It's like, well, we owe them. We have to let them in and give them all of our stuff. They've been doing without. Did you know there's this crazy statistic? I'm going to butcher it. But like 2/3 of asylum seekers vacation in their home country. I was like, I'm out. I'm so done with this.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. And one of the things that Orwell
Might have been refugees, but
Okay.
just the same.
Well, one of the things that Orwell pointed out brilliantly is that like all political speech is designed to, yes, either tune people out or stop them from being able to conjure up accurate mental pictures of what is actually happening. So he said in one of his essays that when defenseless villages are bombarded from the air, the inhabitants driven out into the countryside, the cattle mass machine gunned, the huts set on fire with incendiary bullets, the politicians will just simply call this pacification. Or whenever, let's say, it's mass civilian casualties in a war, it's collateral damage. It stops you from actually picturing what's happening. And so when you say, like, when you see in their reports, they're saying irregular levels of migration, you're like, no, this is an actual invasion at this point. When you look at the population levels, you can go, actually in this article that I wrote, which is for free on our Substack, you can find the link in our description below. It's one of the public articles that we posted. But in that, you can see that over the last year, our immigration levels have spiked like double any other point in history. Last year, we let more people in that 1 year period than in any other period since 1867. This is a facilitated invasion at this point.
Yes.
but they won't call it that. They'll just call it irregular migration.
Of course, it's about not taking any responsibility for the problem. It's every time you see anything like we'll talk about it after, but like what's going on in the UK, and what they do is they blame their own citizens because they're the ones that let the immigrants in. So they can't take responsibility. So it's all about framing in the media. And like you said, it's the same nonsense. It's just, you have to be tapped in to really notice a lot of this stuff. And one of the things that I've noticed very recently, and how powerful the media machine really is what's happening with Kamala Harris. 3 weeks ago, she was the retarded stepchild of the Democratic Party. No one wanted anything to do with her. She was a well-known DEI hire. 80% of her staff have quit because she's untenable to even work for. She was literally called Biden's biggest mistake, and the guy's been out to lunch for half a decade. So that's what they thought of this woman. No chance. No one likes her. They're all shit-talking her, and it's on camera. 3 weeks later, she's now the Democratic darling. She's the queen. And now they've turned it around so much that she's leading in the polls.
It's actually wild when you see how effective the brainwashing is. And
exactly.
I think, and it happens on two different fronts, because the right is susceptible to brainwashing as well. But this is kind of the distinction I see between the two, is that, and I think I maybe even have mentioned this before, is that left-wing brainwashing is very militant. Like they actually have war level access to propaganda. Whereas the right is much more grassroots. It kind of happens as kind of more of a collective thing. They don't have their hands on every single institution, whether it be education, Hollywood,
all
politics.
of the media.
Yeah, all of the media, all of this stuff. So it's much more of kind of a decentralized brainwashing.
It has to grow based on merit. That's the difference. I know that there is some brainwashing and some extremism on both sides, but the foundation of a lot of those ideas come from, it's a meritocracy. Whereas the Democrats, they're just told, like what's happening right now. They say that they're going to save democracy, and how they just input Kamala Harris and just completely no primaries. She has not won any primary, no votes, nothing. This is your new guy.
What's interesting is that even this stuff, like people will think, oh, you're so crazy saying that people are being brainwashed or whatever. This is something Socrates even noted back in ancient Greece, was that the population would almost become like under a spell by political speeches and like good political orators, and how if he just what he realized is all you have to do to break that spell is just ask the orator a question, because everything that they say is very like authoritative claims, right? And it's so crazy too to see. So, for instance, one of the things you're seeing in regards to Kamala is how she was claimed to be the border czar. Biden appointed her the border czar, right? Well, now the right has started saying, well, she was obviously a clear failure with the responsibilities that were given to her by the president. We want to give her more responsibilities. And the Democrat response to that is, she was never the border czar. And they just claim it, and it's just like, it's almost like it's wiped from history that was like the literal title that Biden gave her.
The problem is they have these people. Brainwashing is the word.
Yeah,
I just couldn't think of a better term. You're 100% correct. That's exactly what's going on. It's so weird, and that was my point. That my whole point was, what's actually bringing this to life is the media. That is the weapon that they are using, and they use it so well. And honestly, if she wins this election, I think the country's in trouble. But furthermore, it's maybe the best example I've seen of the use of media, because through COVID, it was obvious. Through COVID, it was so clear what was going on. It was so, you could cut through it very, very easily. Everything was kind of parroted and whatever. But these people made the country love someone that everybody hated 3 weeks ago. And now Trump's going down to the polls, and he was almost assassinated 3 weeks ago. None of this makes any sense. It's because the media, like I always say, the best weapon every government has it's not a gun, it's the media. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm just blown away at this.
The easiest way to tell if somebody is brainwashed is just pay attention to the rhetoric they use and if it's part of propaganda campaigns. So you can see already, and it's so wild to see this already make its way up to Canada, was that you can see the Democratic Party weaponizing the term weird against Trump and JD Vance. They're saying that he's a weirdo or weird dude, right?
It's
all
working.
this kind of stuff. It's working.
Yeah.
A lot of people are calling them that.
Yeah.
But now what I've started to realize is people are starting to call Poilievre that same thing up here. And you can just see them just pick up that rhetoric. And what's really interesting too is the roots of the word slogan. It's actually a Scottish, it dates back to Scottish times, like early Scottish times.
Mm-hmm.
It actually meant battle cry of the dead. And so it's like, means like these are the words that a unconscious, essentially zombie army is going to say while they're trying to take over power.
Interesting.
And that's exactly what you see. And I mean, the right's guilty of that too, whether it, people all of a sudden started calling Trudeau wacko. But I think my point here would just be, look, you can have the same opinion as other people. That doesn't mean you're brainwashed. But if you can't say that opinion in your own words and you are just reciting rhetoric and talking points, it probably means that there isn't that much depth to your thinking.
100%. Here's the way I would challenge it. If you can't defend your opinion, then it's not your own.
For sure.
It's pretty much how I see those things. But anyway, when it comes to, what they were talking about immigration and
we got track of it.
No, but it's the same thing. It's like, I just like to highlight how deceitful and dangerous the media is and how the government knows how to weaponize this thing better than anything else. And it is ruling society and it is keeping these very dangerous people in power. This podcast is brought to you by Higher Healths. Today, I want to talk to you about something that's made a real difference in my health journey: organ supplements. Recently, I was asked why I even take organ supplements. What benefits do they offer? How are they different from other vitamins? And how do I know they aren't just filler? So here are some of the benefits and why I get mine from Higher Healths. Organ supplements provide high levels of vitamin A, C, D, and E, as well as zinc and selenium, which are crucial for maintaining and boosting your immune system. With high levels of omega-3 fatty acids, choline, and antioxidants like CoQ10, organ supplements support memory, mental clarity, brain health, and heart health. Organ supplements also elevate your mood and energy levels, naturally balance your hormones, boost your metabolism, and support weight management. As for why I choose Higher Healths, their organ supplements are sourced from 100% grass-fed, grass-finished cattle raised by Canadian regenerative farmers. I also have a personal relationship with the founders, Nigel and Darren, who created this company to tackle their own health problems. So perhaps the better question is, why aren't you taking them yet? Improve your health with nature's multivitamin. Head over to higherhealths.ca and use promo code BLENDR, that's capital BLENDR, for a 10% discount on any bundle purchase. Higher Healths, connecting people to real food.
All right, our next study, we find that a new study shows Canadians spend more on taxes than food, shelter, and clothing combined. So the average Canadian spent more on taxes last year than on basic necessities like shelter, groceries, and clothing, according to a new Fraser Institute report. In 2023, the average Canadian family earned $109,235, but paid $46,988 in taxes, meaning 43% of their income went to taxes, compared to 35.6% on basic necessities. In 1961, families spent 33.5% of their income on taxes and 56% on basic necessities. However, taxes have since surged, with the average family tax bill increasing by 2,705% since 1961, far outpacing other expenditures. Housing costs increased by 700%, food by 901%, and clothing by 478% over the same period. According to the Fraser Institute, it takes the average Canadian family 5 to 6 months to pay off their total tax bill each year. Despite focus groups commissioned by the federal government recommending tax cuts, especially for the carbon tax, these suggestions were ignored and taxes increased in the 2024 federal budget. Are Canadians getting their money's worth out of these taxes?
Well, let's see. Our healthcare is a mess. Our education system is a mess. Our social programs are lackluster. Our roads are full of holes. The RCMP and our military have gone completely woke. And every government fund is under review for corruption or something similar. Not to mention the cost to service our debt is closing in on 10% of the federal budget. This place is a disaster.
At what point do we say that the citizens of Canada are slaves? Like, literally, I know that's a loaded term.
It's actually not. I was writing an article right now and I say it.
If you work 6 months out of the year and that money gets seized by the state, it's not a voluntary payment. How, like, okay, well, you're 50% a slave at least.
What I called it was a modern day version of indentured servitude.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is. It doesn't matter how you want to skin it. You call it anything you want. That's our reality right now. And the problem is, Is it, well, again, indentured servitude, it forces people to stay here and have no decision on what they're going to do next. And now I don't even know how you save, like, pretty much all your money's gone. How do you save for your kid's education? What happens if your car breaks down? What happens if mortgage rates go up again? Like, there's no wiggle room here. And Canada has the highest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. So we're not in good shape.
Yeah, we have more debt than our GDP and household debt, and the government spending is 50% of GDP. This is a ticking time bomb.
Absolutely. And you know what's happened right now? It's still kind of unfolding, but there is a global economic meltdown happening right now.
Yeah.
I know that there's been trillions of dollars lost in the market over just the last few days. So things might get very real very soon in this country. And back to the Kamala Harris-Trump situation, I don't really like either of them. I think Trump's a better choice right now to fix the country. But if the economy takes an absolute dump right now, it will definitely increase Trump's chances.
That's true. What's interesting is some of the very few stocks that are actually positive in the face of this economic crash are war stocks. Lockheed Martin went through the roof.
They shot through the roof. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Apparently, Trump said that Iran is going to attack Israel tonight, which is, we're recording this Monday at 8 p.m. So, I mean, any moment now.
Well, do you see what's actually, so I'm writing about it right now when we're finished. The U.S. and the West now, all their allies they're getting ready. They're mobilizing troops, getting ready for a war. And Russia is now working. What they said, they used that word exactly. I don't remember what it was. And Russia has intensified their efforts to help Iran. Now, the Russia one I was reading about, and it said that they gave them some sort of defense system to use for Iran to use. So it seems legitimate, but that one I can't really corroborate. Whether there's a war or whether the U.S. economy tanks, or it really doesn't matter. I mean, Canada's on its own war path to basically ruin itself. It's got this bubble that, like you said, is going to burst. It is very volatile right now because we can't afford anything to go the wrong way at this point, or else the results unfortunately be catastrophic. So no, we're not getting our money's worth for our taxes.
It's what Frederick Hayek would call the road to serfdom. All right, our next story for the day, we've got Canada is becoming increasingly dangerous.
Wow.
The Macdonald-Laurier Institute's third, quote, Justice System Report Card reveals that public safety in every Canadian province and territory has deteriorated over the past 5 years. The report highlights alarming trends. The Violent Crime Severity Index is at its highest since 2007. The homicide rate is at a 30-year peak, and sexual assaults reports are at the highest since 1995. Additionally, police-related deaths and violence against officers have increased, and public confidence in the justice system has plummeted to 46%. So is Trudeau to blame for the Canadian crime wave, and will Pierre be able to fix it?
In a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum for what's exactly going on in this country and why when it comes to the criminal enterprises. A lot of them are colluding with liberal politicians. The more organized side of crime is definitely here as long as Trudeau's in power. And a lot of that is on the Liberal Party as far as I'm concerned. And then when it comes to everything else, look, like you look at the immigration, you look at the economy, you look at all the other reasons why. If you can, I'm open to it. Point to one thing that you wouldn't put on him.
Like you were touching on, the organized crime bit it's for sure a thing, and it's very easy to see what the incentive structure is there. So these crime rings from China use our casinos, which are government operated, in order to launder their money. And that's actually something Sam Cooper pointed out in his book, Willful Blindness, where it was kind of like the overall takeaway, the feeling from politicians was, well, this crime is going to happen anyways, so we might as well be able to put some of these funds towards our social programs and education. And it's like, okay, so you're telling me that like you want to fund our education system by the profits of the fentanyl
crime that is killing the kids that you're trying to put through school.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, you idiots? Look, it's also the bail reform too. That's been a total mess. We're just too lax on crime here. But your question is, can Pierre fix it? It's going to be tough. Look, I'm of the mind, and I will continue to be of the mind, that if there's a large enough penalty in place, people will not commit the crime. But it's, how do you implement these things? What does that look like? So you got to pass policy. Can you get it to the Senate? You know, how long does it take to get in there? Plus, Pierre won't even be in for another year and a half. You know, you kind of look at this and go, how far down the rabbit hole, or how much worse is it going to get in that time? And I don't know. But of course he can fix it. It's just, it really comes down to increasing your police force, not defunding the police, de-woking the police. That's incredibly dangerous. And the RCMP and the military, that's all insane shit to me. But for me, it really comes down to penalties. It really does. And I don't know how quickly you can change the penalties that people face in the bail reform stuff when you're in. I don't know how quickly that can happen. But that's what it comes down to, because there are enough people in the world that suck. There are enough people that are psychopaths. There are enough people that will be opportunistic. And if it's a slap on the wrist and I'm back out on bail, and like we discussed, in a previous podcast, 44% of murders, 44 at least, can be attributed to people that were out on bail of homicides in the country in 2022. Sorry, just clear that up. So when you think about that, you're like, there needs to be, and the incentive needs to be, don't do crime, because if I'm caught, my life is over. Like you and I talked about 3-strike rule. I don't know, man. My point is really this. You have to find a way to stop people from doing these crimes. You don't really need to worry about the infrastructure as much as you do need to worry about these people being afraid to get caught and what that means for them. That is really the only way to stop crime.
I think we need not only just policy changes on the bail reform front, but I do think Canada needs to embrace self-defense laws when it comes to firearms, as well as castle laws, which is, you're allowed to defend your home against invaders.
I agree with that.
Because look, if you're a criminal in Canada, which there seems to be a lot of right now, and it's in my mind that I know if I break into somebody's house with a weapon, not only is the likelihood of me getting released the very next day high, but if the person in that home attacks me, they will go to jail. I can break into their home, they can attack me, they will go to jail.
And I'll be out the next day. Yeah, no, that's actually, that's a great addition. That's one thing I definitely should have added. We need to embrace castle laws and basically our gun laws again. And yeah, let people defend themselves, because it would be enough. Because guys like you and I wouldn't care. That's fine. There's a baseball bat here. Someone's taking it to your head. I don't give a shit. I'm good at baseball. This is happening. So yeah, but there's just not enough of that. But also, like, I don't know about you, but me, I would act first. I wouldn't care.
No,
I'd be like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I got a family here. It's not happening. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's actually another really good addition. So if he implemented that and then he implemented harsher penalties, I think you could slow it down pretty quick.
Yeah, like a good radical, I would just happily spend my days in a prison cell and just write mean things about the state. Actually, somebody recently posted, because I made a video where I called Chrystia Freeland, Stephen Guilbeault, and all of Trudeau's other MPs an army of psychopaths. And somebody said to me, like, don't call them psychopaths. I'd be worried about defamation laws or libel laws. And in my head, there was just a sick part of me that was like, I think I'd actually like them to come after me for that. Part of me, it's definitely would just work in my favor.
I think you could prove that they're psychopaths. I think you're safe.
I think you could prove that they're psychopaths, but then also, even just that fact, it's like, we know this. It's the martyr effect. Whether it's Jordan Peterson, every time they tried to come after him, he just got bigger. It's the same thing that you see with Trump. All of this stuff. Like, when will they realize that you can't just try to slay your enemies, otherwise they just become more powerful?
Well, you used to be able to.
Yeah.
But now we have social media. It's true. Like, hail Elon Musk, because without Twitter, I think we'd be in real shit.
Yeah.
If not now, very soon. He's the reason. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but he's basically the man single-handedly saving free speech right now. You and I get the real story. Like, we're writing on what's happening in the UK, and we'll talk about it in a moment. If you didn't have Twitter, I would be just thinking there's far-right people over there causing a bunch of trouble.
Right.
But that's not even close to the truth.
Yeah, well, let's get into that then. So our next story is UK Prime Minister Starmer to use AI and facial recognition to stop protests against immigration. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the, quote, tiny mindless minority responsible for recent violent unrest in several cities following a violent knife attack that killed 3 young children and injured 10 more. Starmer identified the violence as being driven by far-right hatred and announced a new program to improve police intelligence sharing and rapid arrest capabilities. Starmer blamed social media for spreading false information and announced the use of AI facial recognition technology to identify and control rioters. This technology aims to help police manage violent protests and prevent further disorder. However, civil liberties advocates criticized the focus on surveillance instead of addressing the root cause of knife crime and violence. So is UK's today Canada's tomorrow?
It seems inevitable. Like you and I were talking about the other day, it seems like a lot of countries in the West are going to be looking at civil war in the next decade or less. Canada will take a little longer. And I think our saving grace, which sounds kind of weird, is because we have had so much immigration for so long. You don't like this big rise we have right now is a problem, but the country's always kind of operated in term our lifetime anyway, on high volumes of immigration. So it may not kick off sooner than it will, maybe in the States, or it obviously is in the UK. But yeah, I think it's on its way here.
I think as long as these people still believe that there is a 2-tier policing system, and you can see it on full display in the UK. So look, hey, I'm not one to promote violence at all, but you need to crack down on violent people fairly and differing camps, because what you're seeing is, yes, okay, the people that rioted about the knife attack did throw things at police officers. They shattered windows and such like that, right? For sure, you can condemn that. But then you look at what's been happening today is fucking wild to see. I've seen at least 5 to 10 instances go viral on Twitter today of Muslim gangs hunting down anybody that they suspect to be protesters of immigration and literally beating them. There was a dude out front of a pub and a gang walked by and they all started kicking him. Then I watched another one as well of a dude walking down the street, get surrounded by a Muslim gang, and ended up, there was it looked like they were doing street construction to put new piping in. So there was kind of like a trench dug out in the middle of the road, and the dude ended up having to jump into it and pull a construction fence over top of it, and all the Muslim gang was trying to rip it off of him, trying to beat him still. And dude, even some of them as well, you can see, here was another instance. Sky News was reporting on one of them in Birmingham, and some of the Muslim rioters then took out a knife and started trying to puncture the Sky News van tires these
they ended up stopping the broadcast, because they were getting death threats. But what's crazy, if you see the headlines, I'll read a couple. UK riots latest. Hundreds of Muslims block streets in Birmingham in response to planned far-right march. Okay, so it's on the far right. Got it. Met police boss Sir Mark Rowley grabs microphone when grilled over 2-tier policing. Didn't want to answer that question. Masked rioters smash car in Birmingham. No mention of the fact that they're carrying Palestinian flags or that they're wearing balaclavas or anything like that, or that they're Muslims. Nope, just, okay, but they're the ones that I've seen go on the attack. And I understand, look, they're looking at civil war right now. That's what I think is happening right now in the UK. I think they're right on the edge. And yeah, here's the one on Sky News where they basically said a reporter harassed by dirt bike riding protester in Birmingham. But again, they blame it on the far right. Now, from what I can see, it looks like another Muslim person all masked up that's actually doing this. So I don't know. And now several countries, including places like Malaysia and Nigeria, are warning their citizens not to travel to the UK, just in the wake of these riots. Now, the thing is, when you see this in the media, they're blaming the far right for everything. There's not a headline. There are several, but if they're talking about instigation, far right's always involved in this. But here's the thing. If you listen to, what was his name? Tommy Robinson. Apparently he's on the run right now, but he says he's not. I don't know what's going on there. I'm sorry. If you listen to Tommy Robinson, he explained it better. The UK, the citizens of the UK have felt like they're under attack for a long time. And this instant of these girls being stabbed, this isn't the first time. It's happening there quite frequently. And you're talking about the police and the riots. And in Leeds, which is a multi-ethnic community, well known for it, they were lighting double-decker buses on fire and flipping over police cars. So what's happening is citizens of the UK feel like they don't have any other choice but to fight back at this point. And the government, because they're the ones that let all the immigrants in, are actually condemning their citizens and supporting the immigrants. I think this is civil war. I think they may have the opportunity to quell this, but if this boils over another week or so, I think this gets full-fledged, huge mess.
Yeah, I think that part of the whole mass migration agenda is in order to create chaos and cultural conflicts in order so that they can step in with these totalitarian measures, which you're already seeing Stammer say that, okay, well, now we're going to start using AI and facial recognition to stop these protests from even being able to occur, right? So we'll be able to track somebody's stuff online, see their patterns of their social media use. And just like you see in China, we've talked about this before, where if we determine that this person is socially unviable, that they shouldn't, that, you know, they're quote unquote far right, then we'll just stop them from ever being able to even access the train in order to get to the protest. And so you'll stop pre-crime, right? You'll just stop them before they do it. And then what did I just posted a video today as well about two police officers coming in to arrest an elderly man for an offensive Facebook comment that he made. And you can see the dude is just like, what's going on right now? And he's just so confused. He's just like, I'm getting arrested. Should I be bringing my medication with me? So it's like, okay, so you need to protect people's feelings from an old man, essentially. And, you know, who knows? Maybe he did say something offensive, but that's where your policing resources are going right now when you've got these riots going on.
And your country's on fire.
And then you're saying that you're going to put these AI systems in place in order to stop the far right
protesting against immigration. That's exactly why they said they were going to do it. That's insane.
But then there's no talk about them quelling the, you know, Muslim protests.
Nothing at all. Not one word. It's
Nothing.
wild. It's so weird how they pander to the minorities that they let into the country at that scale. Like, I just don't understand any of it. Like, first of all, I think you should treat all humans well. Let's just start with the baseline. Treat everybody decently. That's what I actually think. Now, if you let a bunch of people into the country that are causing a bunch of shit, and you have to choose between the two groups, well, which one is it? It's pretty clear that you choose your own citizens. It's paid. Like the purpose of the government is to work for the people of that country that elected them. This is very basic. This is wild. This is basically treasonous, even though they're the government. It's pretty insane.
Well, I've pointed out how a lot of the leftists in the West are driven almost entirely by Marxist ideology. And so one thing that we need to understand about Marxism is that they view the world strictly through a lens of oppressor versus oppressed, correct? And they put these Muslim people in the camps of oppressed. So one thing that is very important with Marxism and communism as well is the principle that they believe human progress is made by, like, the entire history of human progress is defined by the oppressed classes rising up and overthrowing the oppressor classes. And so this is exactly what you're seeing here right now. Well, we can allow these people to riot and have a revolution because they're oppressed and because we are the colonizers. We're the evil people and the bourgeoisie class, so to say. And so that's human progress. And we want human progress, of course, don't we, comrades?
I totally agree with what you're saying. However, when it comes to things like this, I just don't understand why it's not more clear for people and how they get away with it. Because it is so basic that you were elected by your own people and you served your own people. And then now you're just working against them for some other agenda, which is clearly what's going on. I totally agree with you. I just feel like I always get blown away at the illogical nature of things that happen in society that seem so obvious. How can this be? Like Keir Starmer, what's he got, 2 months left before he's kicked out? Because that's what it looks like right now if this is how he's going to behave. I mean, I hope so if this is what he's going to continue to do, because it's not good for the UK. I don't know. I struggle with those things a little bit, you know, when you kind of step out and you leave partisanship aside and you just go, logically, this doesn't make any sense at all. How is this happening? At scale, with people that have authority and should be somewhat intelligent. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, well, I think this is part of the reason that I'm slowly starting to question whether democracy is even really a good thing, because it pulls the blinds over people's eyes and it makes them think that the people ruling over them are doing so in their best interest, that, you know, that they're representing me. And it's like, no, they're not.
Well, what do you suggest otherwise? What do you have if you don't have democracy?
Some sort of limitation on democracy. I think the Greeks had it right whenever it was property owners, because I believe that like in the way that you could level this out so that it's not just the rich, but you could have it so that, say, property owners and people with children are able to vote. Like a household gets one vote, right?
Sure.
Because
you'll be able to manipulate that over a generation, but for now it would work.
Yeah, but what we're seeing right now is, because this is a good example, is, you know, I just left Toronto, but I would hear women in Toronto, liberal women, right, complaining about how unsafe the streets are, how they don't feel okay being out at night anymore. And then also saying at the same exact time that the bail reform policies are good because they help oppressed people, and also because or racial minorities, like oppressed racial minorities, and then also being extremely pro-immigration, which we know is directly contributing to the crime rates as well. So there's just this bind. And so that's where I think, I don't think everybody should be able to vote. Like, I don't think everybody has the mental faculties for it.
Well, it's tough. I think there's a better way, but right now your way sounds better than the way it is.
Yeah.
No, I do believe that there's a way to make this work. It's just the way that it is right now. Because like you said, like that to me is kind of the problem with people today, is the things that I would say are logical. Like, okay, I don't feel safe in my neighborhood. I don't want to be out on the streets in Toronto, but I'll support these other policies that are contributing to it. And for me, it's so out of sync with reality. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I think that's again, kind of back to the media. That's what the media has been able to do. They've convinced everybody that if you're a part of the Liberal Party, or even conservative, Republican, whatever, that what their ideas are the gospel, and you need to stick to those no matter what, even though they affect you negatively in a big way. You don't even want to be on your streets. But they don't see through that.
And well, for anybody who might think that, that is a man versus woman voting thing that I'm taking there, I think it's also very important that we correct the narrative on the history of voting rights, because, the very common feminist trope about, well, women never had voting rights, blah, 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 right? It's like, do these people realize that men in large got voting rights only 10 years prior to women? Before that, it was just property owners. So the vast majority of men were not able to vote either. And then there was about a decade's chance between those two.
Interesting.
And so, like, yeah, the whole narrative about that past being like the voting issue being between men and women is false. But I do think you should have to have some sort of stake, some sort of situation that you're in.
You should be affected by it in some way, that your decisions actually have ramifications for you personally. But I guess they kind of do. Like, these people don't feel safe on the streets, except they don't know how to. Because
then it just turns it into a social status thing. It's like, oh, I'm voting this way because I'm a good person.
That's actually a good. Now that I'm thinking about your idea, that would actually take a lot of the partisanship out of it. Because it would be like, well, I'm liberal. It's like, well, you don't own a house. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Get out. Nobody cares. You don't have any kids? Shut up. So like, I think there's a better way, but that is a good strategy to sort of just kind of cut through all the nonsense and all the partisanship these days. You know what I mean? So it's not a bad idea. I don't think we'll get back there, but I think it would be a better solution.
Yeah, it definitely would not be a widely popular idea.
No, so we're not. No, I don't know.
Hey guys, we're going to take away your votes. And also, I should just say, under that policy, I would not have a vote anymore. I do not own land.
Your boy's got a family. Let's go.
Hey everyone, we hope you're enjoying this episode. If so, please consider leaving us a kind review wherever you're listening. If even just a quarter of our weekly audience did so, we'd instantly become one of the top-rated Canadian podcasts. We appreciate you helping us out, and now back to the show. All right, our last story for the day, we've got massive protests erupt over disputed Venezuelan elections. So post-election demonstrations in Venezuela continue as pressure mounts against disputed leader Nicolas Maduro, who refuses to release voting details from the July 28th general election. Clashes between security forces and protesters have resulted in at least 20 deaths, according to Human Rights Watch. On August 3rd, Maduro announced 2,000 civilian arrests and vowed no forgiveness, stating, quote, "We have 2,000 prisoners captured, and from there, they will go to Tocoron or Tocuyo prisons, maximum punishment and justice." During a rally, Maduro called for the arrest of opposition leader Maria Corina Machado and presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez for electoral fraud, seeking prison sentences of 15 to 30 years. Despite the crackdown, demonstrators believe there is evidence showing Gonzalez won the election and continued to protest. Opposition leaders like Machado and Gonzalez have taken to social media to encourage the fight for election integrity and transparent results. The unrest comes amid Venezuela's severe economic crisis, with the GDP contracting by over 75% from 2013 to 2021 and an exodus of over 7 million Venezuelans. International pressure, including from the US and other countries, is growing on Maduro to release election details. On August 1st, a US Senate resolution recognized Gonzalez as the president-elect of Venezuela. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken also congratulated Gonzalez for receiving the most votes as documented by the opposition. So will democracy prevail in Venezuela, or will the country remain a socialist hellscape?
It's kind of interesting, right? I think it depends on what their allies are willing to do for them. Is Russia willing to get involved here? They're going to be used as a pawn, is my guess, because this has gotten so big that Western nations and Eastern nations, the larger ones, the kind of the leaders of the world, they're going to use this as a pawn. So if Russia jumps in, if China jumps in, Maduro may be able to continue basically running his authoritarian regime, because it looks like they do have. So there's something I'm reading today that there was a civic effort to digitize records showing Gonzalez's victory with over 7 million votes compared to Maduro's 3 million. So apparently there is proof. Now, I'm of the mind that it doesn't really matter, right? I don't think it matters if it's like, hey, we've got proof. Great, fucking take it from me, because that seems like that's where he's at right now. So I'm split. I think it depends. I actually think it depends. To people playing the chess game right now if they care or not. Do the Russias and Chinas of the world give enough of a shit to get in there and be like, yeah, we're going to back Maduro because Venezuela's got a ton of oil. Are we going to get in there and are we going to back them? Because if they do, then it's just going to become sort of this Cold War situation, and Maduro's just going to keep kind of ruling the regime.
It's so wild. 2,000 protesters locked up and facing maximum punishment.
That's insane. But the thing is, like we talked about earlier, how do you stop people from doing things? Make the penalty harsh enough.
Well, this is my idea, right? Where it's just like socialism, not even once. Don't try it.
Yeah.
Like this is...
Dude, I don't think people realize that 20 years ago, 22 years ago or so, Venezuela was like the most prosperous country in South America.
Yeah, well, look, right? Their GDP contracted by over 75% from 2013 to 2021. In less than a decade, almost their entire GDP just wiped out. And so like that, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, right? With the Canada in our walking down this path towards complete socialism, that is what we're looking at. Like that's where that road that they've got that brick strapped to the gas pedal is headed towards.
I'm of the same mind, and I think this is a really good live example because people don't like to think that this kind of stuff can happen, except that we're on that exact path. And this is the lie. This is the one. You can see this happening right now. It was like 22 to 25 years ago when they basically just went full socialist. And they've just taken a nosedive since then. I know people from Venezuela from like 20 years ago or so that left because they're like, it's completely, everything, ever since they nationalized everything, they're like, it's completely untenable. Nobody wants to be there. It's you're living in squalor. It just created this massive divide in society because these programs don't work. Look, this stuff never works. But I really honestly believe that it always comes down to this. Well, we can do it better, Jonathan. We can learn from their mistakes. No, you can't. No, you can't. The human mind, no, you can't. That's not how we're built. It turns out that this is just not a system that works for humanity. You try it again, we're going to lose millions of lives, and you're going to have a war. But all right, show me what you got. I feel like there's almost no other way around it. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. Do you think we're too far down the path to turn back, or do you think that it's inevitable that we're just going to come to a head?
No, I think we can turn around, but I think we're at a tipping point. Like, I think if we head down this road for another 2 or 3 years, let's say the worst possible scenario happened and Justin Trudeau got back into office, I think we would be headed down that socialist path, like outright socialist, not just kind of what we're like, what Canada currently is right now, where we're halfway in between free market and socialism. But I think, 100%, if we were to go down that road, we would end up there.
Well, I think would happen too. If he got in again, Pierre Poilievre would probably leave the country. I wouldn't blame him, not one bit. He'd definitely leave the party. I'd be gone right away. And I mean, I know that I'm a nobody, by comparison. But I'm a good indicator of what like hardworking, high value individuals will do. They will leave. They will leave this country very quickly with young families gone. I'll go make my money somewhere else and do better for another country. That will happen at scale. So right now you got a lot of us kind of hanging on, right? You have the Pierre Poilievres of the world going, maybe we can fix this. You got guys like you and me going, let's hang on and see if we can fight through this while you and I do this every day. maybe there's a chance. But if he gets in again, how do you feel? Because I would feel hopeless.
Yeah. If he was to get in again, at that point I wouldn't even have confidence in our elections, and I already don't have all that much. And
for good reason.
People say it's dangerous to deny elections, but it's like we've seen our own government has admitted that our elections are being interfered with.
No, not even close. That's ridiculous. Those people just, again, they live in an alternate reality. It's just not even reality, unfortunately. At the end of the day, if he did get in again, there'd be no opposition because we'd all get the fuck out. We'd be like, oh God, we know what's coming. Impending doom. We are gone. So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's that next 2 to 3 years. I think it's the next 2 to 3 years for a lot of things in Canada. I think it could be, we could turn things around from an immigration perspective. We can turn things around in terms of a culture perspective, the economy, how we use our natural resources, our values, just so many things we could do better. And I think we've got this window that's still open. And what's interesting is a lot of times, I don't remember what the theory's called. When something's bad, you don't fix it. When it's bad enough, you do.
Oh, yeah, beta region paradox.
So the beta region paradox, perfect. When something's bad, you won't fix it. When it's bad enough, you will. And all of these things are bad enough. And so we have this window where we might actually take action as a nation and as a political group, if the Conservatives get in, to fix all these things that we maybe would have just left on the back burner for another decade or two. But because they're so bad now, we have to fix them. So it's really weird. Like, I think Canada go complete opposite directions. It could go down that socialist path you and I just talked about, where the opposition leaves and the country burns to the ground. Or, things are bad enough and we fix everything, and Canada could be quite prosperous and be a great place to live again. And I think the next 2 to 3 years is we're going to see what direction it goes. And in the next 5, we're going to know for sure.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing, just tying it back into the Venezuela situation here for a second, I thought it'd be funny to highlight this, is that Elon and Musk accepted the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro's challenge to fight. So in an unexpected twist of geopolitical theater, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has thrown down the gauntlet to tech mogul Elon Musk, challenging him to a duel after accusing Musk of plotting an invasion with space rockets. Maduro called Musk an arch enemy and declared with him a showdown. Quote, "You want to fight? Let's have it, Elon Musk. Just say where." Elon Musk, never one to shy away from controversy, stoked the flames by accepting the challenge on social media, setting the stage for an unprecedented but also unlikely clash between a world leader and a billionaire tech titan. The stakes, according to Musk's cheeky reply, are as high as they come. If I win, he resigns as dictator of Venezuela. If he wins, I will give him a free ride to Mars.
I love Elon. I think he's great.
I love that there's a dude that is on that level that is just clowning on these dictators, because that's what you need to do. You need to mock these people. And did you see the one with that he went after the California Gavin Newsom as well? Gavin Newsom said that he was going to pass legislation to outlaw the type of tweet that Elon did, because he posted a parody video of an AI rendition of Kamala Harris's political campaign, just pretty much clowning on her. And then Newsom said, this shouldn't be legal. California will pass legislation to make sure that things like this can't exist online, blah, blah, blah. And then Elon Musk replied, "I just checked with the World Authority on this subject. Detective sug on these nuts." And he said that it's completely fine under parody laws. And you're just like,
great.
Yeah, because you need to at a certain point just be like, I don't respect your authority.
No,
like,
I love that he's in that position that he can do that. Like, you and I don't have a voice to get there, but I love that he does, and that's how he's using it. He's just, oh man, he's a national treasure. He's not even our nation, but he's a treasure. I love that guy. He's a global treasure.
All right. Anything else you wanted to add for today?
No, that's everything.
All right. Don't forget to head over to our Substack, where you can sign up for our newsletter, which goes out 5 days a week for free, or you can subscribe for less than the cost of a pumpkin spice latte and get access to our original articles, as well as exclusive podcast episodes and direct contact to us. So again, you can find the link to that in our description below, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.